Welcome back to Library Choice YouTube channel. In today's class, we'll be learning how to make this beautiful off-shoulder overlap dress. So this is the overlap part of the dress, and this dress can just be on your shoulder, or you can make it an off-shoulder if you want. If this is what you like to learn, kindly stay tuned to the end of this tutorial. Thank you. To make this, I've already have my pattern. I adjusted my pattern for both the front and the back. This is an half scale pattern for the front, and also this is the back pattern. So I'm just going to set the side back aside and then work on the front first. Okay, so this is my pattern. I already have several tutorials on how you can draft this pattern. I have the waist and bust dart on this pattern, and the first thing I'm going to do now is to transfer my bust dart to the waist. And how do I do this? I'm just going to open up my waist dart here, and then I'll go ahead and open the bust dart also. So once I open the bust dart, and I close it, the dart that I have here is going to be automatically transferred to my waist, so you can see what I have. So after doing this now, if you look at this blouse very well, you will notice that it is an overlap blouse, and we do not have an overlap on this pattern that I have. So I'm going to grab a fresh pattern now, and then we can do whatever overlap that I want to do here. So this is the pattern that I have now. So now the next thing is for me to grab this fresh paper, and then I'm going to measure whatever overlap that I want to do. So in this case now, I'll be measuring 4 inches for my overlap. So now I'll just place my tape rule like this and then measure 4 inches. So once I measure these 4 inches, I'll place my pattern again on that 4 inches. Well, I just want to show us the various modifications that we can do for this particular style. Okay, so once my 4 inches is done now, I can now place my pattern away from these 4 inches, and this 4 inches is going to be my overlap allowance. So it can be 4, it can be 3, it can be 2, it can be 5, depending on what you want. So I'm just going to try to hold this with a masking tape. But before I continue, let me just show us the variations I was talking about. So if you look at this pattern, you will notice that we have excess volume around here, which means as against what we have on this pattern. So if you see this pattern now, you will notice that with this pattern, it is a bit flat around here. It's not as packing as what we have here. So for us to get this now, we need to do a slash and spread method to introduce this volume that we have around the waist area. But in this case, there is no volume here, so we're just going to be leaving it as a flat pattern. So I'm just going to be teaching us how we can do both this and this in this video. So the first one we'll be tracing is this one that does not have any volume around the waist area. And to do this, we're just going to be placing our pattern directly on this, and then I'm going to be holding this pattern with a tape because this paper keeps folding, so that we can see what I'm doing very well. So after holding this pattern with a paper, this is my neckline. Okay, so this is where the neckline stops. That's where our shoulder slope is. So from my neckline area, you need to determine where you want your breaking point is. Breaking point in this case is where this overlap starts. That's the extent that you want your blouse to be opened to. That is your breaking point. So you can see that for this one, it's around the chest area. You can see that we are not seeing any cleavage here. For this one is around the bust point area. So that is left to you. You need to determine where you want that to be. So for me now, this is my chest measurement and this is my bust point. So I can just decide that I want my breaking point to be in between that. So I'm just going to be going for around 9 inches, and then I'm going to extend that to my overlap allowance. So after that, the next thing I want to do now is to create my neckline. You can see that this is like a V-shaped neckline. It's not round like the regular neckline that we normally have. So from my neckline there, that's why I did not bother to draw any round neckline around there. So from my neckline there, I'm just going to connect. Let me look for a longer ruler. Okay, so now I'll start my connection from my neckline to this breaking point. Okay, so from my neckline now, I'll connect to this breaking point, and then from the breaking point, I will extend my waistline to the overlap allowance also, and then I'll connect to where my breaking point is. So you can see what I have. So now the next thing now is to extend the shoulder, because this is going to be cut in form of a kimono. And to do this, you need to measure from the center back, from your center back to where you want the sleeve to stop. But before I go, so this is what I was talking about. This is the center back. So you measure from your center back to where you want this sleeve to stop, which is around here for me, and this is around 15 inches for me. So which means from my center, from the center fold for my front ear, I'm going to measure 15 inches here to create my kimono. So from here now, I'll take my tape rule now and measure 15 inches, which is around here. But before I continue, this neckline, the 3 inches that I have here is quite tiny for me. So I want to extend it to maybe 1 with 1 or 1.5 inches. So if I extend it by 1.5 inches, I'm going to redraw my neckline, and then I'm going to be having something like this. Okay, I hope you understand that. So this former line that I have is going to go away. I'm no longer using this. So now to create my kimono sleeve, I've measured from this place. Let me hold this with a tape. So I've held this with a tape, and then from that shoulder slope now, I'm going to continue taking my measurement up to that 15 inches mark, which is here. Okay, so this is the 15 inches mark. I hope you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so that's where the 15 inches mark stops. Then I'll connect it back to my neck point. So on that 15 inches mark, the next thing is for me to create my sleeve opening. That's how open you want the sleeve to be. So for this particular pattern, you can see that it is not the regular sleeve opening measurement. It is quite wide compared to the regular one you have there. So now I'll be opening this by maybe between 8 to 10 inches. But let me just go with a sleeve opening of around 9 inches. So if I go with a sleeve opening of around 9 inches, 9 inches is going to be around here, or even 10 inches. Okay, so once I have 10 inches there, I'll take my ruler now and then make it into a straight line. So this is going to be the opening of my sleeve. So once I have that as my sleeve opening, the next thing now is to connect this to my waistline. So let me just hold this waistline also with a tape so that it can lay really well for us to see. Okay, so this is the waistline. So there are several ways you can connect this. Let me just use the pencil first. You can just connect this directly like this from your waistline, or you can just connect it maybe 1 inch before your waistline by going upwards by 1 inch or 1.5 inches, and then you're just going to create like a curve there. If you have a curve, you can do that, or you just connect straight like this first, and then here you just curve it to this point so that it will not be too sharp. Whichever one you want to work with is fine for you, but I think I'll just be maintaining what I have here. So to just blend with what I have on my waistline, so you can see what we have there. And this is going to be the full pattern. Okay, so this is the case if you don't want to have any volume here. So that's if we are removing the slash and spread that we have there. But if you want to maintain this slash and spread, what you're going to do is on this regular pattern that you have here, you need to draw out your slash lines. Okay, so to do this slash line from this M line, remember we are trying to introduce this volume on the M line. So you just take your ruler now and then connect it to, I'm not going to be slashing this, that's why I don't want to use a marker. You just connect, or let me just use a black marker so that it will be different from what we have. So remember, this is our allowance. All these places, the allowance for our overlap. This is where our main center front starts. So this is going to be on the center front. So from this M line, this is the M line of the center front. You just connect your slash line. So you can have multiple slash lines. You can have first one like this. You can have another one right beside it like this. Okay. I don't want it to enter into my dart. And then you slash it and you spread. We've done several slash and spread on the channel already, but if you're not clear with this, let me just know in the comment section so that we'll do a dedicated tutorial on how we can do this blouse pattern with a slash and spread. So now let's continue with what we have here. So now the next thing I'm going to do now is to, but the dart that we even have here, but once you are not closing this dart, as small as it is, it will even introduce more volume for us here by the time we gather it to fit into our actual blouse measurement. Remember, we have a dart here that we have not closed, so this can even be an avenue for a volume, which I think I'll be considering for this pattern. So now the next thing is for me to cut out this pattern so that we can work on the back panel. So now I'm just cutting out this pattern, and then on this dart area I'm just going to give room for folding, or you just fold this before cutting. Once you get here, you can have like half-inch allowance. They already have allowance on this pattern, so I'm not bothered about adding extra allowance. Okay, so I have this as my pattern. I'm going to cut off the neckline also. Remember, I extended the neckline by 1.5 inches, so I'm cutting it on that point. And then here I'm going to cut off my shoulder slope. So this is going to be my front bodies, and I'm going to indicate here that I need to cut 2 for both parts of the front. So now I can remove this. I don't need it again. I already got the pattern that I want. So I'm just going to label this the front, and then I'm going to indicate that I need to cut 2 for this. So this is my pattern, and this here is the dart area. So you can see what we have there. So once you close this, it's going to introduce extra volume. So this is what I was talking about. So now let's modify the back panel. Okay, so for the back, I'm just going to grab a fresh paper also and spread it, but in this case there's no overlap allowance, so I'm just going to place my pattern on it like this. The reason why we are putting it on the fresh paper is for us to be able to add that kimono sleeve that we added to the front. So I'm just holding this with a masking tape, and then the same thing that I did for the front, I'm going to modify the neckline. So for the front here, I went up by 1.5 inches. I went inwards by 1.5 inches for the neckline, which is what I'm repeating here. Remember, we're going to be sewing the front and back together, so it has to be accurate. And then on the neckline also, I'll be going downwards by, let's say, 9 inches, just like I did for the front. And then I'm going to connect it to have like a slight V shape. Okay, I hope you can see what I'm doing. So from here now, I'm going to be connecting it to have that kind of V shape to my new neckline. Then after this now, I'll be measuring the same 15 inches that I used for the front from my center back here. So here I've measured the 15 inches, and then just like I did for the front also, I'm going to be connecting it from my shoulder slope up to that 15 inches mark, which is here. So after connecting it like this, the next thing now is to do the same 10 inches sleeve opening that we did. So I have this as my back panel now. The next thing is for me to cut out the back panel also, and then we'll go over to cut this on our fabric. I've cut this now, and then I can remove my pattern. I don't need it anymore. Then I'll label this my back, and then I'll indicate that I need to cut 2 of these if I want it separately, or I can just cut this part on fold. Okay, so this is the front pattern, this is the back pattern. So I'll go ahead now and cut this on my fabric, then I'll bring it back to show us how we are going to join it, but it's very simple to join. So I'm going ahead to cut this on my fabric. I'm using this plain fabric, it's a bit stretchy. So this is the front part. Now the first thing I'll do now is close this dart. Like I said, this dart is what I'll be using to introduce volume to this. So I'll just close this dart up. You can just split it once like this, or just gather from here to here. So I'm just going to be closing this place. Then after closing it up, I'll place the front and back. It's a stretchy fabric, so I don't want to remove it. So you can see that the shoulder matches. So I'm going to join it on the shoulder, and then I'm going to join it on the side also. So that's just the joining that we need to do now. And then let me just remove the front so that we'll see it better. So here, before you remove it, remember there's an overlap here, so you need to notch sorry, you need to notch this overlap area because they are going to be overlapping on each other. So this is where I have my overlap here, and then I'm going to be notching it for me to show where they are going to cross each other. So now once I remove these pins, this is what the overlap is going to look like. So this is one, this is the other one. So you just look for your notches, and then you place your notches on each other like this. So you can see that they have already overlapped, and this place being your breaking point. Remember, we measured 9 inches downwards. So that 9 inches is our breaking point, and this is what we are going to have. So you can see what we have here. So now here you are going to hold your overlap here with a stitch so that it doesn't remove, and then I can easily see my dart area because of this V that I created. So here I'm going to take my dart piece there on this side, and then the same thing I'm going to do it on this side also, and then I'm going to hold everything together with a stitch so that it can give me one piece. Then for the back, I'll remove it also. I'll close it on the shoulder. I'll leave this sleeve opening that I created, and then I'm just going to close the little that I have on the sides, and that's all the sewing you need to do. Okay, so now you can see I just pinned it. So now I've pinned it on the shoulder, as you can see. I've pinned both on the shoulder, and this is my front. I've pinned the dart also. So I've pinned both darts, and then I just match the front and back together. Then I'll go over and sew it on both sides. Then that is all we need to do. You just need to pipe the neckline, the arm, the sleeve opening area, and then the hem of the blouse. And if you're adding it to a dress, you just add it to the skirt part of your dress like that. Use the stretchy fabric earlier. I just want to state how this pattern will work with a non-stretchy fabric like Ankara. So I'm using these two Ankara fabrics so that my overlap can show very well. I'm using this animal print and then this block Ankara here. So as I did for the first one also, the first thing I'm going to note is our overlap allowance. So I'm just going to place my pattern on this, okay, and then I'm going to notch where my overlap is. So I'll make sure they match each other well, and then I'll place my pattern. So this is my overlap allowance. I'm just going to take my paper away now and then notch it on that point. So once I notch it there, I'm going to be placing them on each other, taking note of where my overlap is. Okay, so this notch is going to be lapping on each other. Then after that, you can see what we have here. So now here I'm going to take my dart as explained earlier. Then I'm going to be placing the back on the front, shoulder matching each other. So I'm just using this animal print for the back. So I'll make sure the shoulder matches each other here, and then I'll sew it on the shoulder, and then I'll sew it on the side also. Then I'll compare what difference I have. Okay, so now I've held my dart with pins, and then I also held it with pin on the shoulder area here. So I'll go over now and sew it on both shoulders, and then I'm going to join it on both sides also. Then we'll take it to the mannequin to see what we have. So after joining it on the shoulder and the sides, this is what we have for a stretchy fabric. So you can see that this overlap here, I had to hold it with a stitch because the fabric is so stretchy. So my recommendation is that if you are working with a stretchy fabric like this, when you are drafting your basic bodies, you should adjust the pattern so that you have smaller pattern because it keeps stretching. In fact, I had to take extra 1 inch on this side. You can see that it's folding. I had to take extra inches on this side for it to fit the waist like this because the fabric keeps stretching. So you can see how it's just going down like that. So I'll adjust. Then on your neckline, remember I went inwards by 1.5 inches on my neckline. So if you're working with a stretchy fabric like this, you may want to maintain your 3 by 3 inches natural neckline so that your neckline won't keep falling. So that's my recommendation. But I just had to adjust this by just fitting it a bit and then reducing the measurement that I have here. So this is what it looks like on the front. So you can actually adjust it to the sides or whatever it is, or you can just make one shoulder on and then the other one to be an off shoulder like this, depending on what you want. So with a stretchy fabric, it gives you rooms for all this because it keeps stretching. And then with a stretchy fabric, you can just go away without having any zipper at the back. You can see the back of this now. There is no zipper on this because it will stretch to whatever size that I want it to stretch to. But with an Ankara fabric, okay, so with an Ankara fabric, this is what we have. You can see the overlap just held on its own, even without me stitching it. You can see that it is, I can open it, and then I just held my dart. So this dart is what gave it this volume. You can see this pocket that we have here. That is what gave it this extra volume that we have on the bust area. And then for the back, you will notice that there is a dart on the panel. So I had to take my back dart, which is this, to give it this fit. So what I was saying, if you're going to be working on a, remember this is the mannequin, so I was able to wear it from the under area here. But if you're going to be working with a woman, you need to open it here at the center back for you to put a zipper, because it's not going to be opening up. And we have a very fitted waist here. So this waist is around 28 inches. Meanwhile, the bust is around 36 inches. So if you are wearing it from up, this 28 inches waist is not going to go, the bust is not going to go through the bust area. It will be too tight. That's why you need to open it at the center back here. So this is what we have at the back, and this is what we have at the front. And likewise for this also, you can actually open it up at the chest area for any fit that you want. So you can have one shoulder here and then the other one to be off. And then if you don't want it this off also, remember I went in by 1.5 inches on the shoulder area before I connected my neckline. You can just maintain your 3 by 3 inches, which is going to be around here, if that is what you want. And also if you are doing an off shoulder, you can just decide to work maybe a strap here so that it can just hold it on your shoulder. Then you'll be able to open this up to any extent that you want. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you enjoyed it, let us know in the comment section. Like, comment and subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.